On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong declared one of the most famous sentences in history. One small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. But what do these words really mean? This sentence refers to the Apollo 11 mission, or as NASA states, the Eagle has landed. There were many objectives of the Apollo 11 mission. However, the essential goal was set by President John F. Kennedy on May 25, 1961. This goal was to land on the moon and return to Earth. Minor but other objectives included scientific exploration with the lunar module, deployment of a television camera that transmitted signals to Earth, and a series of experiments such as the deployment of a solar wind composition. In addition, they were to gather samples of lunar surface. The Apollo 11 mission was launched on July 16, 1969 from Cape Kennedy. The Apollo 11 mission consisted of Commander Neil Armstrong, Command Module Pilot Michael Collins, and Lunar Module Pilot Edwin Aldrin, nicknamed Buzz. Once the Apollo 11 spacecraft was launched, it began an Earth orbit which lasted 2 hours and 33 minutes. The S-IVB engine was then reignited, in which so it could gain the velocity required to escape Earth gravity. Apollo 11 had traveled 240,000 miles in 76 hours before entering into a lunar orbit on July 19th. The lunar module Eagle, manned by Armstrong and Aldrin, separated from the command module in which Collins remained. This happened the following day, July 20th at 1:46 p.m. After 2 hours, the lunar module Eagle began descending to lunar surface. At 4:17 p.m., the spacecraft landed on the southwestern edge of the Sea of Tranquility. Armstrong had radioed to Mission Control in Texas a message in which is now famous for NASA. The Eagle has landed. Being 5 hours ahead of the original schedule, at 10:39 p.m., Armstrong opened the hatch of the lunar module and began climbing down the module's ladder. About 530 million people watched Armstrong from a television camera as he planted his foot in the moon's powdery surface and stated, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind."
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Many may believe that this is where the story ends. That Apollo 11 is and only is the famous sentence declared by Armstrong. However, the mission was only partially complete. Armstrong and his crew still had to complete experiments and gather lunar surface. As well as this, they had to return to Earth. Armstrong collected a sample of lunar surface and stowed it, just in case they must return to their spacecraft earlier than planned. Aldrin began his way to the lunar surface. The astronauts began their planned activities described earlier. Also, the American flag was placed on the moon. Aldrin and Armstrong stayed that night on the lunar surface. At 1:54 p.m., it was time for the astronauts to leave. The Eagle, which was the name of their spacecraft, began to ascend back to the command module where Collins was. At 5:35 p.m., Armstrong and Aldrin docked and successfully rejoined Collins. Lastly, at 12:56 a.m. on July 22nd, Apollo 11 began its way home. The crew landed safely in the Pacific Ocean at 12:50 p.m. on July 24th. When Armstrong and Aldrin had left the moon, they had left a plaque along with other items. The plaque had stated, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot on the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." With this, an exploration was complete. Armstrong and his crew had traveled to an unfamiliar place in order to learn and encounter the experience of the moon, the feeling of the moon's surface, the beauty of the land, encounter their goal. With this goal, an exchange in history was born. They had given their bravery and peace to receive a memory in which would never be forgotten. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and his crew had explored, encountered, and made an exchange in history. They had gathered their courage to complete an action in which will never be forgotten in America.